to the Lincoln City Council meeting of November 16th. We're going to do things a little differently today. We're going to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then in honor of the people that lost their lives in the attack in Paris over the weekend, Roy's going to read a poem for us. Then we're going to have a period of silent meditation, and then go on with our business with the Mayor's Award of Excellence and then the Board of Equalization. So let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No Man is an Island by John Donne. No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less. As well as if a promontory were, as well as any manner of thy friends or of thine own. Any man's death diminishes me, because I am involved in mankind. And therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee.
Thank you, Councilman. The Mayor's Award of Excellence for September, presented this time to Network Specialist Michael Cutchell from the Information Services Division of the Finance Department. Cutchell has worked with the city since 1974. Nominated in the categories of Customer Relations and Productivities by Jamie Wentz of the Citizens Information Center, we call it the CIC. Jamie manages 5 City TV, and he nominated Mike for his work on the channel's biggest project of the year, which was the live broadcast of the State Games of America from July 30th through August 2nd. 5 City TV produced a live broadcast of the opening ceremonies and also nightly live shows from Pinnacle Bank Arena and Memorial Stadium with wrap-ups of each of the day's activities. City TV had never transmitted a live signal from the arena, which was critical to the project's success. And that was done, and despite a busy workload, Mike worked with City TV staff to connect a fiber optic link from the arena to the studio at City Hall. Jamie said that without Mike's efforts, the live broadcast would not have happened. He wrote, "When problems came up, Mike maintained a positive attitude and would work tirelessly to troubleshoot every problem. Mike would meticulously work his way through the steps and the processes, always finding a way to solve the problem." The programming, which was also available through the city website, was well received and helped put a positive spotlight on the event and on city and on the city. City TV heard from viewers watching the live webcast from as far away as Massachusetts. Jamie wrote, "I'm very thankful for Mike's hard work, patience, creative thinking, and positive can-do attitude while helping with this project. The teamwork and persistence he showed were outstanding and a model for city employees," she wrote. So it's my pleasure to present Michael Cutchell with the Mayor's Award of Excellence for September. Please join me in congratulating Mike. Mike, come on up here. I think Steve Hupka and Steve Henderson want to say a few nice things about you. You wouldn't mind that, would you?
Mike, we congratulate you on this award. It's very well deserved. I'd like to point out a few things about Mike. Mike has performed his job struggling through some physical ailments, one of which was a very badly injured ankle. And in the years, it actually took years, when you'd see Mike walking down the hall, he'd be limping like crazy, but he'd be going fast as he was doing his job. And it almost amazed me you could limp that badly and move that fast as he was doing his job. And Mike's the guy that sometimes I walk into the department and there's a tall ladder there and I see half a body, the other half's up in the suspended ceiling, and I look up there and it's Mike. And also you might walk in the department and see somebody crawling around the modular furniture, and it's Mike down there struggling to run cable so people can do their jobs. So Mike, very happy for you, very proud of you working for the finance department, and done a great job for us.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. Just add a quick comment or two to what Mr. Hubka said. Again, trying to keep a light heart about this. I'd never really have thought about network support as a contact sport, but sometimes Mike sort of defines it that way and really keeps us on our toes about how he does his work. But certainly in terms of the epitome of a frontline hard worker doing what's needed every single day, Mike is that person. And he has helped us for decades, literally, of getting the things done for the city that need attention when it comes to technology. So congratulations, Mike. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to introduce some people who are here. My wife, Bobby Ketchel. And the rest of my IS family, because we are a family. I particularly want to thank Jamie Wentz. He struggled with me through all this, and I was very impressed with the professionalism of everybody that works with Jamie. So I appreciate the council's time and the mayor's time, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. We will move on to the Board of Equalization. In accordance with LB 898, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted at the back of the chamber. Each year, the Lincoln City Council passes a number of improvement district. Okay, we're back on. My fault. A number of improvement district ordinances. Today's districts include the Downtown Business Improvement District, the Downtown Core Business Improvement District Overlay, the Downtown Maintenance Improvement District, the West Haymarket / Downtown Maintenance Business Improvement District, the West Haymarket Downtown Management Business Improvement District, and the West Haymarket Downtown Core Management Business Improvement District, whose land is benefited by the proposed improvement. These districts encompass the management activities performed through and contracted by the Downtown Lincoln Association. Once these projects have been completed, the cost is paid by the city through its Special Assessment Revolving Fund. It is then necessary for the city to recoup its costs from the benefited property owners and reimburse its revolving fund. These costs or assessments are computed by the Urban Development Department and presented to the City Council for its review when sitting as the Board of Equalization, as we are now. The clerk will read each district individually from the printed agenda. After the district is read, a representative from the Urban Development Department will come forward and make a brief statement about the district. After that, anyone wishing to make a statement may come forward. Please state your name, address before making comments.
Chair, I think we need to elect you as chair.
Oh, I nominate Trent Fellers as chair of the Board of Equalization.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Discussion? Okay, call the roll.
Lamb,
Yes.
Rabel,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
I don't have to read this again, right? Okay. All right, call the first item.
Item number 1, Downtown Business Improvement District, generally bounded by H, 6th, R, and 17th Streets. Item number 2,
Just read them all.
oh, okay, Core Businesses Improvement District Overlay, generally bounded by Centennial Mall, M, 9th, and Q Streets. Downtown Maintenance District extending from 7th Street on the west to 17th Street on the east and from R Street on the north to M Street on the south, including the properties abutting on the west side of 7th Street from N Street to R Street, the east side of 17th Street from Q Street to M Street, the north side of R Street from 7th Street to 10th Street, and the south side of M Street from 8th Street to 17th Street, both sides of 13th Street from M Street to Lincoln Mall and all of Cornhusker Square. West Haymarket Downtown Maintenance Business Improvement District, generally bounded by the west line of Outlot C, West Haymarket addition from approximately K Street on the south, north to N Street, and continuing north along the center line of Pinnacle Arena Drive to approximately 9th and 10th Streets, south to R Street, west to 7th Street, south to O Street, east to 8th Street, south to the alley, south of N Street, and west to the east line of Outlot C, West Haymarket addition. West Haymarket Downtown Management Business Improvement District, generally bounded by Pinnacle Arena Drive on the west and north, north 10th Street on the east, and Q, R, and N Street on the south. West Haymarket Downtown Core Management Business Improvement District overlay, generally bounded by Pinnacle Arena Drive on the west and north, north 8th and North 9th Streets on the east, and O and N Streets on the south.
All right.
Good afternoon. I'm Ron Kane with the Urban Development Department, and I am the staff person who prepared the proposed distribution of assessments before you this afternoon. And these assessments are to cover expenditures incurred between September 1 of 2014 and August 31 of 2015. And I'm here to try and answer any questions you may have.
Okay, questions? All right, Carl.
As I understand it, there's currently discussion going on with the DLA and presumably with the city about making this simpler so that we don't have 6, but maybe 2 or 3 of these different arrangements. And is that, but we're not there yet. Is that correct?
You're absolutely right.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, other questions? All right, thank you. All right, anyone wishing to speak to these 6 items? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the voting section.
I'll take motions for all 6 districts.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Lyrian, discussion. Okay, call the roll.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Is it a sine die adjournment?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, seconded by Roy. Okay, call the roll.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
Okay, we're adjourned. I will. And, okay, I'm gonna go into this here first. Let's go into the regular city council meeting. In accordance with LB 898, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted at the back of the chamber. The order of business of the city council is as follows. The clerk will call the items listed on the agenda under public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on an item should come forward after the clerk reads that item. The applicant and those in favor should speak first, then those opposed. The applicant may then make one short rebuttal. Each speaker should begin by stating name, address, and whether you're speaking in favor or in opposition to the item. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. After all public hearings, the council will vote on resolutions and items listed under third reading. On the second and last meetings of the month, immediately prior to adjournment, anyone may speak on an issue not on the agenda for that date nor planned for a future agenda. And I think we are in open mic today. If you need an agenda, they're outside the front door. If you need a parking pass to get out of the parking lot, we have some in our council office, which is the door just down the hall here. And if you are here to watch item 30, we are going to be moving a delay of that item till December 2nd or December 7th later on in the meeting. So if you're here for that, we'll be doing a delay. Go ahead and call the first item.
Just a reminder, due to the Thanksgiving holiday, the City Council will not have a meeting next Monday on November the 30th, 2015. Let's see here. Public hearing consent agenda are items 1 through 10. On item 9, there is a clerical error. It states that setting the hearing date should be November 16th at 3 p.m. We'll make that correction. The correct date is actually November 23rd, 2015 at 5:30.
All right. Go on to our consent agenda. Items 1 through 8.
Item number 1, approving a grant contract between the Community Health Endowment and the Lancaster County Health Department to assist lower income and uninsured Lincoln and Lancaster County residents in assessing a dental home for dental treatment and continuity of care for a term of July 1st, 2015 through June 30th, 2018 for a grant in the amount of $492,862.
Who is it introduced by?
Introduced by Larion Gaylord Baird.
So moved. Second?
Seconded by Jane. Discussion? Okay, call the roll.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylord Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
And I think we can just take them by item number and who introduced them, and then we'll vote.
Okay.
Okay, you're doing good.
The rest of consent agenda is just items 2 through 10, and I can take a motion for voting session.
So move.
Seconded by Roy. Discussion on those items. Oh, wait. I didn't even have, I'm sorry. I didn't even have people come up and testify. Sorry, we're a little out of, our normal clerk was sick today, so we're behind a little bit. I didn't even take testifiers, so we need to go back. Okay. Anyone wishing to speak to anything on our consent agenda item, I apologize, please come forward. Anything on our consent agenda? Yeah. Come forward, please.
Jane Kinsey with Watchdogs of Lincoln Government. I would like to know, I don't have anything against this, but I would simply like for clarification to know how this fits in with the dental program that the Clinic with a Heart maintains. Is there a coordination? Is any money given to the Clinic with a Heart out of this amount? And any other questions?
Okay. I don't know the answer
We
to
could
that.
have our director, Judy Halstead, contact you. I think she could best.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I think we could ask that the Health Department Director, Judy Halstead, contact you if that would be all right. And she, I think, could give you the best information.
Okay. Will it be approved then before I get that information?
What I can recall from our briefing on this, and it's been a few weeks now, but what I can recall is that the health department has applied for a grant, so these aren't local dollars, but to try and incentivize finding dental homes for some of our most low-income residents, because the health department's programs are starting to max out and they are reaching the limit of whom they can serve. So for many of these patients who are not usually taken by private dentists, this grant is intended to try and help provide incentives for private dentists to take them on, to help relieve the burden on the health department. Does that sound right to you?
That's exactly right.
What's the source of this grant?
I think that came from the Community Health Endowment.
Okay.
So, I mean, those are local funds from the
Yeah.
sale.
Sorry, my mistake, they are local funds,
Hospital.
but they're private, they're not public funds.
Yeah, they're not tax money.
Okay.
I don't recall any discussion of Clinic with the Heart at the time.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
think that came
Well,
up.
they're running a dental program also. And I guess if it's not tax money, that would answer part of the question. The other thing that I would urge is that there is communication so there isn't overlap, that different people are served by the two programs.
All right, thank you. All right, anyone else wishing to speak on our consent agenda items? All right, we vote again on item 1? Okay, we'll take each item up again. I apologize for doing that.
Item 1, approving a grant contract between the Community Health Endowment and the Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department to assist lower income and uninsured Lincoln and Lancaster County residents in assessing a dental home for dental treatment and continuity of care for a term of July 1st, 2015 through June 30th, 2018 for a grant in the amount of $492,862.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Roy. Discussion. Okay, call the roll on item 1.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay, and then we can just take the other ones in a group.
Consent agenda items 2 through 10.
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Lyrian. Discussion. All right, call the roll.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
All right. We'll move on to liquor resolutions.
Public hearing liquor resolutions. Those giving testimony are asked to come forward. Raise your right hand for the clerk to administer the oath. After the oath, witnesses shall state their names and addresses. Also, applicants or witnesses are not required to stay for the voting session. I'm going to call item 12 and 13 together. Application of Shopko Stores Operating Company, LLC, doing business as Shopko number 175 for a Class B liquor license at 6845 South 27th Street. And the related manager application of James E. Larson for Shopko Stores Operating Company, LLC, Shopko number 175 at 6845 South 27th Street. Do you solemnly swear to affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
I do. James E. Larson, 17212 U Street, Omaha, Nebraska. Here to propose the liquor license for the Class B license for Shopko 175.
All right, questions? All right, thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak to this item? Okay, next item.
I'm going to call items 14 and 15 together. Application of 9500 LLC, doing business as Lazari's Pizza for a Class C liquor license at 4701 Old Cheney Road, Suite D. Also with the related manager application of Seth D. Regan. Do you solemnly swear to affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
I do. We do.
Okay, name and address, please.
What? Greg List, 531 South 46th, Lincoln, Nebraska.
Seth Regan, 6731 LaSalle Street, also Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay, and tell us about what we're here for.
We're here, the application for a Class C liquor license at a small pizzeria in South Lincoln. Lazari's Pizza's been downtown for 20 plus years. We've been in the business for 15 years, working closely with Lincoln Police Department, from Investigator Fossler to Investigator Schaefer, to provide a safe environment for the city of Lincoln and the Lancaster County.
All right, Jane.
Can you tell a little bit about the 2 suspensions that occurred and what steps were taken to make sure that, what corrective steps have been taken since then?
Well, I think everyone would say the downtown Lincoln bar scene can have its moments and be difficult to do with, and so we've continued training with the online training and certainly working close. We had Investigator Schaefer in to kind of go over some things of, you know, making sure that we're doing our diligence at the door and making sure we're doing our diligence with over-serving and making sure that we provide, you know, adding door guys, adding different things to provide a safe and comfortable environment for all those people.
Other questions? All right, thank you. Oh, John.
We appreciate your coming before us. You've got a number of other elements in the history there that I think do raise a little bit of concern on our part. Granted, this is a new location and all. If we were to approve this with some restrictions, say for a one-year period, that would say that you would lose the license if you personally or business-wise had any type of infraction.
Right, and we understand that, and that's certainly something that, you know, we understand that it's those street locations and the downtown bar business and what we're looking for down south is certainly, we've gotten older and wiser and are looking to kind of provide something down there that we think South Lincoln would need. That's, we don't want to be open late at night. We don't want to serve, you know, it's just if somebody wants to grab a slice of pizza and a beer, but we certainly would understand the restrictions.
Thank you.
Other questions?
So,
Go ahead.
what are the hours of operation then?
10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then kind of depending if, you know, there's a football game at night, it might be till 11, but certainly not the late night hours of O Street.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Carl, do you have one? All right, Roy?
Well, I do have some concerns about the long list of infractions and misdemeanors. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Speak to it?
The personal ones or
personal ones? Yes.
Well, the personal ones, obviously, I think as we've gotten older, we made some mistakes when we were younger. I think you can see that all of the infractions are driving related, and some of them, you know, we certainly didn't mean to forget on our application, but I forgot that I ran a stop sign when I was 17 or, you know, so it's certainly something that I think as we all get older, we all make some mistakes when we're younger. Obviously with family and kids and wives and stuff like that, I think you continue to become a better person, a more valuable, you know, contribution to the city. So I like I said, a lot of those are, you know, certainly no felonies or where drug related or stealing, and it was just some mistakes that we made with some poor driving choices.
Well,
Go ahead.
yeah, I have some concerns because some of them are alcohol related.
Right, and
Not
that's
just
certainly something that we know that is, you know, in our business, it's a very tricky give and take of dealing with customers, and something that, you know, we addressed as ourselves and realized some restrictions that we need to take and do some better choices. And, you know, it's like, it's something that we realized we made mistakes. We accepted the responsibility for them. We never had any infractions since those, and we've certainly, you know, tried to provide a service to the city of Lincoln.
Would you care to maybe just elaborate on a few of the changes you made in your business practices that have helped avoid those kinds of problems from happening, and specifically selling to intoxicated persons or having folks leave the establishment with open container? What has worked for you?
When I think you'll certainly see that, you know, the over-serving is obviously a big issue in the city of Lincoln and with any bar owner, whether it's us or the rail yard, and you certainly learn to work with the younger staff on the signs and symptoms and realizing that, you know, it's okay to tell your friends, or it's okay to, you know, tell someone that may be 40 years old that, you know, sir, you've had too much to drink, it's time for you to leave. And so continuing to work with the staff and continuing to work with, you know, everyone that's around us, and including our friends, and saying, hey, you know, if you've had enough, it's time to go home, and let's get you home safe. Certainly trying to someone to sneak a beer out of the front of a business is not overly difficult to do, so you continue to work with the door guys to make sure there's always someone at the door, always someone standing there to prevent those issues.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Carl.
Yeah, you've got a pending violation on that exact issue for.
Well, and that's what we talked to Investigator Schaefer about still, and like I said, it's certainly something that, you know, we're continuing to work on. I think some of the violations were at some of the other places. Lazari's and the bar next to it are combined for one liquor license because we share a door. But because of that situation, we have to combine them, and so we're continuing to try and work to, you know, make sure that doesn't happen, and make sure that somebody doesn't have a bottle in the back of their hand when they walk out the door. I think O Street's a very difficult area to work in. I think any O Street owner would tell you that. Certainly, we continue to try and do our best in those situations.
Okay, so the application that this is for is the new south facility. So is this going to be more of a Lazari's Pizza restaurant or more of a bar?
100% Lazari's Pizza.
Yeah, it's not gonna be a bar. We're not gonna be open late. It's
Yeah.
just pizza and beer, closed at 10 o'clock at night.
And we applied for a full liquor license, not really needing the full liquor license or the off sale, but just if we wanted to have special events or something along those lines, if somebody wanted to have, you know, a bar or something like that, we felt like we want to be able to provide that opportunity. Do we want to sell off sale? No. Do we want to stay open late at night? No. That's not what we want this place to be, and I don't think that's what South Lincoln wants this place to be either.
Other questions? All right.
Thank you.
One more. Are you going to have taps here, or are you going? Or you kind of limit it just to the bottles out of the?
Just to bottles is our. We don't have anywhere for a tap right now, so
pretty tight space in there.
It's a real tight space in there. So we just figured it'd be buckets of beer and a bottle of beer, and kind of that's our. And we shouldn't do wine or anything like that either. Just not really what fits with it.
Great. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks. All right. Thanks.
Anyone else wishing to speak to this item, these two items?
Should we do it that at the end, or how do you want to do that?
Let's have them come up on each individual,
Okay.
so we don't get them tied up.
Conan Schaefer, liquor investigator with Lincoln Police Department.
Go ahead.
So, so they're applying for a new license for a new facility.
Yes.
They talked about the difference in their current license area and the challenges of that. You know, they've had some issues there. So if they were to lose their license downtown, what would that do to their south business if they were to be granted a license there?
Licenses are adjudicated separately, so if they were to lose a license or any penalties, suspensions occurring at one license, as imposed by the Liquor Commission, does not directly affect the other license. I think generally it's only when you take into consideration the other licenses because they're under the same ownership, or at least one of the members is a corporate member at each of the others and this new proposed one.
Okay.
John?
Yes, Investigator Schaefer, thank you. If we say we approve this and we had a one-year restriction that we've done on some other licenses that say no personal nor business infractions, how does that relate in one of their other licenses if something happens there, or does it just have to be of a pure personal nature detached from that business? But anything
well,
across the board?
if they're taking this current application into consideration, if this restriction is placed on the liquor license, something to the effect of no personal or business violations for 1 year, if there was a violation, it would go before the Liquor Commission. They would take a look at this, and then at that time, it would be up to the Liquor Commission to decide if they were only going to deal with that license, or they, in effect, could take a look at all of the licenses. But not able to speak on behalf of the Liquor Commission as to what they would or would not do.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? All right. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to these items? Okay. Next items.
I'll call items 16 and 17 together. Application of Matthew Myers doing business as the Happy Raven for a Class C liquor license at 122 North 11th Street, Suite 100B, and the related manager application of Matthew W. Myers. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
I do. All right. Matt Myers, 1301 Lincoln Mall, Lincoln, Nebraska. New craft beer bar, the Happy Raven. We'll be selling strictly craft beer and wine, no hard alcohol at all. Questions? Jane?
Can you tell us a little bit more about the pending disposition of the infraction of selling alcohol to a minor that was in
Yes.
Morgantown?
Yes. I moved here from Morgantown, West Virginia. I was running, I was a front of house manager at a brew pub there. I was also bartending at a bar there, and there was a sting where basically a lady came in, ordered a drink, and I misread the date of the ID. So we got a liquor violation for that. And yeah, that's the only trouble I've ever been in, basically. So
when is that scheduled to, the hearing for that?
the hearing was over. I paid a fine, and now it's settled. So I pled no contest to it and paid a fine, and it's over.
And have you completed the management training?
There was actually a scheduling conflict this month, so I plan on completing it next month in December.
Okay. Other questions? Carl?
When do you plan to open?
I'm actually operating on a temporary operating permit right now, so we opened about a week and a half ago.
Okay. Other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to these items? All right. Next item.
I'll call items 18 and 19 together. Application of Drive Method LLC, doing business as Method Cycles and Craft House for a Class C liquor license at 416 South 11th Street, and the related manager application of Sean S. Dunbar.
Sean S. Dunbar.
I gotta give
sorry.
you the. Do you solemnly swear to affirm or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
I do.
Yes. All right.
Sean S. Dunbar, 4353 Washington Street, Lincoln, Nebraska, 68506.
And my name is Jason Brummels of 3315 East Pershing Road in Lincoln.
Great. All right. Tell us about your application.
This actually kind of grows out of a few different Lincoln businesses. I've ran a web development company in Lincoln for some time, and Sean is actually my brother-in-law, and we worked together on a couple of projects. There's a bicycle brand named Atier Cycles, which started out of Lincoln a few years ago. We helped them as a web client. Long story short, we've kind of assumed, I guess, the operational distribution of that in North America because it's largely web-based. We were renting office space. We had bicycles. We thought about a showroom. And there's been a really unique concept deployed in some other towns around the country. Portland has actually a couple places. Denver has Denver Bicycle Cafe. This concept of doing craft beer, craft coffee is one thing that we're adding, and then also having basically a full-service bicycle shop as well. So what we've done is, since we had all of these things kind of in our history, Sean can tell you he's helped manage bars for some number of years. We just thought this is a great fit for Lincoln, and we found a great space on South 14th Street, or excuse me, South 11th Street. We've got bike lanes out front. We're right off the new bike boulevard. We think this is a great way to not only make Lincoln more interesting, but help build community for cyclists. So.
Okay, questions? Carl?
Another biker bar.
Pretty much. With a little different dress.
Okay.
Sometimes. Anyway.
Okay. Drive Method, what's that about?
So it's an LLC that I actually formed in 2009. I had essentially worked as an independent contractor doing web development services since the mid-2000s. I did the LLC in 2009, and yeah, we just teeny tiny, usually me and maybe some subcontractors doing web development work, primarily for Lincoln-based businesses, but focused on e-commerce. So, you know, not a lot of people have heard of it because it's me.
So that it doesn't have to do with operating vehicles.
No.
Which is kind of ironic because on the information that we got, there's a long list of violations of vehicular operation.
That would be, you know, I think there was a gentleman up earlier, and it is unfortunate, but when I was younger, I was probably obviously a little bit careless with my regard for traffic laws. Led to some, a couple other, I think there was maybe a couple of driving under suspension tickets that I ended up with during that time. Some other unfortunate interactions, but I graduated from high school early, so these are things that mostly happen in my late teenage years. Over the course of time, I have received a few speeding tickets here and there, but primarily, unfortunately, failures of judgment in my youth.
Okay, and most of us have been there. Not sure, I won't speak for everybody, but in your application, you did not include all of those items, and others were discovered that were not included in your history.
I think there was some confusion. Of course, we haven't done this before.
Okay.
So what we had done is pulled our driving records from the state, and I can't remember where else you pulled those from.
And the criminal records from
and we
Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah, and so we submitted those, and completely my fault. You know, I didn't even think about the fact that not everything that's on my DMV history is there, or is actually there. You know, still didn't quite make sense to me when Conan was explaining, why there's some differences there. But nonetheless, after those things being pointed out, we were able to go back through and build up a complete history, which we emailed, as soon as we were aware that we had made that oversight.
In terms of operating this facility, are you going to be involved in it, Jason, or is this something Sean's doing primarily, or how do you?
I'm going to be the manager of the front of the house, the bar operations, pretty much the retail business for the bicycles. Jason will mostly be doing the internet stuff for maintaining our website and web sales for the bicycle part of it.
Okay. And have you had a liquor license previously?
Under my name, no.
Okay. Have you worked? I'm seeing something here.
Yeah, for about the past 12 years, I've worked in Omaha for ACR Corporation, opening and building the Jakes and Benson, Beercade and Benson, St. Andrews, as well as doing some other work for them on the back end of the business. But I've been doing this for quite a while.
Thank you.
Yep.
Jane?
Have you completed the training?
I have.
You have? Okay.
John?
Now, if I may, Mr. Brummels, just going back to the items that you didn't disclose initially, several of them happened 3 years ago on fictitious license plates, and it was several times over a couple-year period. Could you describe what exactly was going on there?
Yes. Those issues were, there was, I guess just to put it simply, I had a BMW sports car. It didn't come with a license plate mount on the front. I never mounted one. Eventually we ended up, drilling a hole through the bumper to make sure that I was legal. But that's why. I had a car that didn't come from the factory with a license plate mount, and so I was not careful to make sure that that I was, I guess, fully legal in terms of having two plates mounted. So there was two that happened in my car, and then there was also one for my wife's car for a similar infraction.
So she didn't have the bumper mount either?
Hers, if I remember right, I believe, no, hers was, I think, because maybe we hadn't got the plates in time after we got a new car or something like that. It was, like you said, they were all kind of in the same time, so I don't specifically remember which ticket was attributed to which infraction, but basically they were all related to not having a proper license plate on.
Well, you
on the
had
car.
one in May of 2009, another 4 months later in September of 2009, another in March of 2010, and then 2 in October of 12.
And then in 2006 as well. So this is going on for a period of like 6 years.
Yeah, 2006. I believe 2006 had to have been like something akin to an improper registration on a motorcycle. I don't know. Again, I don't have those infractions memorized quite as well as having a list in front of me. But the other ones were related to the sports car I bought. And then I know there was one for my wife's car, which, again, I think it was we had bought a new car, didn't get plates in time, or we hadn't renewed them in time.
Cindy?
Thank you. Mr. Brummels, what year did you graduate high school?
1996.
Okay. So I see a lot of those infractions happened after that. And, Mr. Dunbar, as I look at those that you didn't disclose, most of them date back to 2002, but there was one that was just a month before you made your application. So I think we share concern, not necessarily with the nature of the infractions, but the fact that they were non-disclosed. And while I understand your explanation for perhaps a number of these things, I'm concerned that there was one that was so fresh, like it looked like it was September 23rd, 2015, and your applications were made October 15th.
Is that the registration?
It's an improper registration, and it's something that it said was pending at the time of.
Yeah, I paid my fine for that, which I believe was $74 or something like that.
And again,
but
yeah,
I
it's.
believe when we actually filled out all the paperwork, that hadn't happened yet, but when it got submitted, when we were talking to Conan and all that, and then going over everything else,
So you had the ticket, you just hadn't been to court? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly, yeah.
And Cindy, in total fairness, I understand the concern about us not having an accurate memory of those things. Particularly in my case, as you can see, unfortunately, I worked a little bit hard in that area, not in a good way, for a short period of time in the late 90s. Once it was clear to us that the information that we believed was the official information wasn't complete information, we absolutely went over everything, combed through everything with a fine-tooth comb, and sent in a complete record. There was no intent to deceive. Once it was clear that the official records aren't complete, we were then able to supply a more accurate accounting. So I totally understand your concern, but in fairness, we did supply every infraction in our history, albeit not initially upon that initial submission.
Does that mean that you've filed an official amendment with the State Liquor Commission?
We haven't actually filed an amendment. We sent an email to, do you remember?
Yeah, but I can't remember the gentleman's name, I'm sorry. But my understanding, and all we did is I sent an email to the gentleman from the Liquor Commission, and I said, hey, you know, we noticed upon going over this that the official records aren't the complete records. Here is our entire histories, just to be clear, just so we're on the up and up. We didn't mean to deceive you. We just didn't understand that the official records were incomplete. So.
Cindy?
What did you have to do to find the complete record?
We had a meeting with the liquor investigator, and kind of went over. He pulled our complete records, which for some reason we can't do on our own online. Like if you go to the DMV, it just gives you kind of a superfluous overview if you have like traffic violations or stuff like that that's pending, I believe. But once we had our meeting with the investigator and we got a complete list of what our infractions were over our history, we immediately that afternoon sent an email to the Liquor Commission stating all of that.
Okay, so this list isn't one that you compiled, this is one the investigator compiled, and then this is one you sent on to the state?
Yes.
Once we were able to meet with someone that had better information than we did,
that knew more than we did.
Our memories were helped significantly. So, and again, I completely understand the concern, you know, and a lot of these things, yes, I had, you know, some infractions for a license plate or a speeding ticket over the past 10 years, but most of this is 12, 15, 18 years ago, you know, which is half of my life. So there's certainly things I don't recall from that point in time, so.
Other questions? All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to this item? Investigator Schaefer, could you come forward, please?
It's all yours.
Conan Schaefer, investigator with the Lincoln Police Department.
So, Investigator Schaefer, thank you. We'd had some conversations actually before the meeting today about information and making it easier for applicants to be able to retrieve their full police records so this doesn't happen. Is there a way that we can do that, provide them access to this information so that this doesn't happen for those who do intend to present everything openly?
Yeah, we've had discussions in my office about this. The best way, I don't, know the state nor the city, knows that they're preparing an application prior to the submission of an application. The Liquor Commission, at this point, I believe, is not inclined to publish any additional information on how to obtain criminal or driver's histories on the Liquor Commission website that I know of. The city, on the police department's website, does have a section specifically for how instructions and information about how to obtain a criminal history and a driver history and what exactly that means. That, for the driving record, the DMV will only maintain the information that's affecting a person's license at that time. They work off of a retention schedule, so depending upon what the violation is, it will drop off of a certain period of time, and they don't maintain a record of that. And similarly with some, misdemeanor violations, they're just not tracked in that public criminal history after a certain period of time. So it really becomes up to the responsibility of the individual, I would say, to do their best to recall what criminal violations or infractions that they have had, and to do that to the best of their ability. And I suspect that some people would have an easier time doing that than others, depending upon the number of violations.
Okay. Will this application have a hearing automatically with the State Liquor Commission?
It's my understanding that when these State Patrol's Alcohol and Tobacco Division investigators do the background check, and they'll come up with similar information that I did, that the investigator generally will request a show cause hearing for what they call falsification of application and, character as to whether or not that this person should be issued a license. So they would go before the Liquor Commission, and at that time would have an opportunity for the liquor commissioners to ask those questions similar to what we're doing here. And then, I can only give you my opinion about, how to evaluate that, so I don't.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Jane?
When we got this application in, I was quite surprised by the number of violations. I know, Jason, you have over 34. I would say that you have the dubious distinction of having the most violations I've seen of anyone that presented an application to us. And 9 of them are within the last 5 years. Then they're very serious violations. Investigator Conan, I'm seeing applications with more violations than this.
I have not.
You have not? Okay, thank you.
Larry?
Can you speak to the difference between a couple of the charges? Failed to display proper number of plates, seems pretty self-explanatory, but fictitious license plate also appears.
It could be a number of different things. It could be a completely different license plate from a different vehicle. It could be a license plate from a previous vehicle that they owned that they put on a new vehicle. It could be, and sometimes it depends upon which jurisdiction they're in within the state as to how it's worded. It could have been not properly displaying the expiration decals. So there's a few things that it could have been in there.
If it says improper registration along with that, is that then a separate charge or the same, that's from the same date, then that's likely the cause?
If it's on the same line, then it's the same, yeah.
Other questions? All right, thank you. All right, and anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, next items.
I would call items 20 and 21 together. Application of Walking Hubble LLC, doing business as The Hot Mess for a Class C liquor license at 410 South 11th Street, and the related manager application of Carolyn M. Nolte.
Hello, my name is Carolyn Nolte.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
Yes. My name is Carolyn Nolte. I live at 940 South 20th Street, and I recently bought the Hot Mess 3 weeks ago, and I'm working on a temporary operating license. And what questions do you have for me?
Okay, questions? All right.
Yeah.
Oh, Carl, yeah.
Have to give you equal opportunity here, so
Yeah,
just
I'm
tell
kind of
us
nervous
about.
now, actually, and I haven't eaten, so.
No, tell us about the business, what you plan.
Actually, I have retained all of the employees. There are 6 bartenders, 2 of which work most of the shifts. The 2 bartenders and myself have taken the liquor class. They took it a year ago. I've been working with them, and things are running smoothly. I like the bar. It's very relaxed. People play Scrabble. We have free ping pong. It's just a very casual bar. We serve beer and alcohol, liquor, and so we also sell cigarettes.
All right.
Did you want our operating times?
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, anyone else wishing to speak to this item? All right, next items.
I'll call item 22, manager application of Jackson H. Bornmeyer for Swig LLC, doing business as 9 South Char Grill at 844 South Street. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
Absolutely. Jackson Bornemeyer, 3926 Lake Street, Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay, tell us about your application.
Recently in May, one of the general managers moved on to a different, the manager's name that was on the application moved on to a different job, and I've been selected by our owner to take over that position, I guess.
Okay, questions? Roy?
What have you done with your life to get yourself back in
everything
line
around?
after 3 DUIs?
You bet. Definitely a valid question. I was on probation for 3 years, and when you're on probation for 3 years, you have time to think about certain things, make some changes. I definitely, well, now, fast forward a little bit, I have a 2.5-year-old son. That also makes a big difference on how you're living your life. I've cut some people out of my life that were certainly not the best folks to probably be hanging around in my mid-20s, but I'm older now, wiser now. You have time, like I said, on probation, you have time to think about your life if you use it properly. A lot of people don't, but I used the time to reevaluate where I wanted to be. I'm on medication too for anxiety and depression, which was a big part of some of the mistakes that I made in my youth, as some other folks have stated today. But just trying to take care of my son, trying to work in provide a good place for people to come in town and eat. I've been there for 6 years, been managing it for 5, and we just want to continue doing what we're doing.
And you are aware that there will be a cause hearing at the State Liquor Commission?
I hadn't heard that for sure yet, but I figured that would probably be the case.
All right, other questions for Mr. Bornemeyer? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to this item? Okay, next item.
Item 23, manager application of Perry A. Persh for Lam Quang Fang LLC Perfect Diner at 2855 North 27th Street. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
I do. I don't generally serve as a liquor manager for my clients. This case is kind of a unique circumstance. When I put together the LLC, Lam Kwai Fang, which is opening the restaurant Perfect Diner just south of 27th and Cornhusker, it was called to our attention that although all of the members are permanent resident aliens licensed to work and be in the United States, and although they're investing roughly $1 million in the location and the business, because they are not United States citizens under the Nebraska statute, they were not eligible to serve as managers of the LLC, despite the fact it's legal for them to be members of the LLC. And unfortunately, one of their managers, Shelley, is also a permanent resident alien here. And so I have volunteered myself to be the liquor license manager. I note that I have previously been a member of Home Cooking LLC, which had its liquor license, and I went through the City of Lincoln police training on that liquor license. I've also subsequently refreshed my certificates through an online training course. If memory serves, I believe it was through the community college. I note that that some of the members of Lam Kwai Fang should be eligible for citizenship in approximately 2 years. I would also note that we are now working in the legislature to get the law changed so that a permanent resident alien who is licensed to work in the United States would also be able to serve as a liquor manager. And then finally, I would just note that I have a background, obviously, in law and law enforcement and risk management, and I am happy to be there. And in fact, I've been at the restaurant several times now, but happy to work with the staff as far as recognizing patrons who may be intoxicated, ensuring that that the people, the diners, are carded and taking other reasonable precautions to make sure we're not violating the State Liquor Control Act.
Questions? Cindy?
Thank you. So is this primarily a dining establishment that is wanting to serve alcohol?
Yes, that's correct. It's a full-service restaurant, Asian fusion cuisine.
Okay. And so you're aware that, well, you're not planning to be there all the time, right?
I will not be able to be there all the time due to previous commitments, but I will be available for training.
Excuse me. I want to mention that while we're applying the liquor license Classic I, Gengye and me, we both take a management classic training too, so we'll be there all the times. So Perry Purchase is our best friend and lawyer, and then he gonna help us manage like our new.
Do those two things go together, best friend and lawyer?
Unusually.
Cases happen like this, so he will help us dealing with the new Classic I license management, so I think we'll be doing good.
Jane.
Can you talk a little bit about the application process? I know when you filed, you just said various convictions, but when they did the inspection and research, you had over 23 violations of, speeding, animal control issues. Do you want to address the process? Can you tell us why on the first application none of those 23 violations were disclosed?
Well, I never applied on the first application. Gang Yi was the person who applied for management. I've never counted the number of minor traffic infractions I've received over roughly 30 years of driving, although I can't imagine my record being much different than the average Nebraskan. In regard to the dog at large, dog barking, I'm glad you asked that question, actually. It'd be nice to clear the record. And about 2004, I think I came back from Virginia from working for Congressman Lee Terry. I adopted a couple of dogs out of the pound. They had been dropped off by a woman who was pregnant, whose husband had been sent to Iraq, and she couldn't take care of them anymore. I thought by getting 2 dogs that they would keep each other company and be easier to manage, although I ended up getting twice the damage. About a year and a half after I got the dogs, when I was gone, I got a report from the person who was taking care of my dogs, who was very familiar with them, and in fact she was a zookeeper at the Lincoln Children's Zoo, that the dogs had gotten into a fight with the neighbor's dogs, which, if you're a dog owner, that happens. Now, the neighbor reported that one of the dogs must have bit her because she had a scratch on her hand, although she couldn't say which dog bit her. And in fact, she had been holding her dog apparently at the start of the fight, which was the more likely cause of the scratch. And also, she punched both of the dogs in the face as the fight with her dog went on. So that was how these 2 dogs got adjudicated as dangerous dogs and ostensibly bit a human being. Since that time, when I moved, there were a couple of instances where the dogs got out through negligence. It wasn't my negligence, as I recall. But in both cases, I accepted responsibility for it and paid veterinary bills to get the dogs checked out. They had never hurt anybody. They had never seriously hurt another dog. The last offense is worth noting. Actually, Kobe Mack, who's in this room, I was a spokesman for a conservative PAC, which you probably know as a prominent Democrat. And Kobe Mack got a call that I was being targeted because I was a spokesman for this PAC, and somebody let out my dogs intentionally while I was gone. So I guess, forgive me if I'm not particularly sympathetic.
Barry, could you tell us what happened to your dogs in the end?
They were killed.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Other questions? All right. Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak to this item? Okay, next item.
Mr. Chair, I think it's appropriate that we address the liquor resolutions.
Yes.
I would first move approval of items 12 and 13.
Second.
Seconded by Jane. Discussion? Okay, call the roll.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge, Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Next, I would move approval of items 14 and 15, but that the provision be added that they're subject to restriction of having no personal nor business violations within the first 1 year of operation.
Second.
Seconded by Roy. Discussion? Okay, call the roll.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Then I would move approval of items 16 and 17.
Second.
Seconded by Lyrian. Discussion? Call the roll.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge, Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
I would move denial of items 18 and 19.
Second.
Seconded by Jane. Discussion? No discussion? Cindy?
I'm disturbed by the non-disclosure, but I'm also disturbed by citizens not able to regularly access their records. At the same time, my biggest concern with the non-disclosure is the more recent charges that I think should have been disclosed. So it's not the nature of these violations, although when you have, and everyone has a traffic violation or two, I think, but when you see repeated violations, it shows, repeated non-concern for the law. And I guess for me, not disclosing that is even bigger yet. You can forgive some things if you know about them. And so I have problems with the more recent.
Roy?
I just want to point out that as we vote, if we disapprove this liquor license application, it will go to the State Liquor Control Commission for a hearing, and they will have the final say.
Mm-hmm.
Larry?
Well, as we look at this application, we're presented with the application for Sean Dunbar as the manager of the liquor license, and his business partners also with him. And I think the business partner, Jason Brummels, is the one with the number of violations. Sean's are very few, and most of them are 13 years ago, save for the one that is pending. So I guess I'm curious if there's a way to potentially parse this out where he could potentially be approved or with restrictions, if that would satisfy the council for the manager application, but somehow, or if we have to look at them as a unit.
Well, I think in this case, that's an excellent observation. In this case, though, if you don't have a license, there's nothing to be manager of. And so that was why I put them together.
Okay. So
And I think
they would need to come back with a different licensee, is what you're saying?
that,
Potentially.
and again, as has been pointed out, this will be ultimately heard by the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission, and we're making a recommendation to them is what it boils down to.
Other comments? Carl?
Yes. I really like the business plan of what they're hoping to do. Neither individual currently has a liquor license, and it just seems to me that this is appropriate to go to the State Liquor Commission, who ultimately makes these decisions. And I wish you well there.
All right, any other comments? Okay, call the roll in the denial.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
No.
Gaylor Baird.
No.
Motion carried 3-2.
5 to 2?
Oh, I'm
5-2.
sorry.
5-2.
5-2.
Cutting a couple of us out.
I'm sorry.
I would move approval of items 20 through 23.
Second.
Seconded by Carl. Discussion. Call the roll.
Lamb.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
All right, let's move on to public hearing resolutions.
Okay, public hearing resolutions, item 24, assessing liens for cost of registration fees and penalties for neglected buildings on the properties generally located at 226 South 29th Street, 2125 South 14th Street, 2217 South 67th Street, and 1609 South 27th Street, 1344 D Street, 615 West Joel Street, and 3015 N Street, and assessing a lien for cost of demolition on the property generally located at 441 D Street.
Chad Blaha, Building and Safety Department. I'm here with John Boyes, our Chief Housing Inspector, and Chris Conley from Law Department, and John Carlson, Mayor's Office, and we could answer any questions that you may have on these liens before you.
Questions? Cindy?
Thank you, Chad, for being here. I know we talked a little bit at our pre-meeting about the process, or this has been in place for about a year, the neglected house registry, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Could you just tell the citizens about what the process involves and how we get to this place?
Sure, how we get to the liens?
Yes.
Yes. If you want detailed information on how the ordinance came to be, I'd ask John and Chris to come up. But in general, the ordinance was meant to take care of, or give the city, not necessarily take care of immediately, but give the city another tool or set of tools to combat some of the decaying and problem residential properties within the city. It kind of works in conjunction with our a couple of different programs. It works in conjunction with the housing complaint process. There's some of the health code violations that are involved as well, and also the red tagged property lists. If a property has a couple of different ways to get put on the neglected building registry, it has to be fit the definition for neglected building, and the first requirement is that it is vacant, regardless of what other requirements that it may or may not meet. And then it has a list of about 8 or 9 different items that if it is positively matches one of those requirements, then it is eligible to be put on the neglected building registry. The department, Building and Safety, then sends a notice to the property owner saying that this property either was red tagged for 2 years or more and is eligible to be put on the registry, or that it meets one of the other requirements. And I believe it's 30 days that they have to come in and register on their own. If the property owner fails to register on their own or bring it out of violation, one of those 8 or so reasons, then the city can choose to register for register the property on behalf of the property owner. We essentially pay ourselves and put that property on the registry. If the city has to do the registry, then there's also there's a civil penalty involved as well. So that ultimately gets tracked to the property owner. Registry is due every 90 days, and so at each 90 days, the property owner has to re-register themselves, or the city does it. This can happen for a period of 2 years, and over the course of those 2 years, we don't we don't file individual liens each time one comes up. We kind of wait till there's a batch to bring forward. We can, that's the next step after the multitude of notices that are sent to the property owners.
So the property owners, first of all, the homes are vacant.
Yep.
And the property owners have been given an opportunity to cure the neglect or the violation, correct?
I suppose you could say that, you know, twice, because it usually involves prior violations. There have been notices filed, and there are current violations with those properties. And so that was the first opportunity for the properties to be fixed. And then the second opportunity was when they got the notice for the registry. It gives them another notice to get moving and get a plan in place to bring the properties to compliance.
And they also have an opportunity to self-register if that doesn't take
Sure.
place. Okay. And so the liens are only assessed when the city has to step in because the property owner has not taken the action, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then there's one on here that actually was for a demolition of a property.
Correct. That was a property that during the course of the registry period, it was deemed that it would fit the requirements for a dangerous building, and the city caused it to be demolished, and then the costs for that demolition work is being assessed to the property.
Thank you.
Other questions? Carl?
John Carlson and Chris Connolly, both, if you'd be on deck, maybe, okay. John first, if you would.
John Carlson with the Mayor's Office.
Thank you. And your job with the Mayor's Department?
I run a project called Stronger, Safer Neighborhoods.
All right, and part of that job is responding to people's concerns about problem properties in their neighborhoods.
It is, and over the course of the time that we've done the project, aside from doing individual neighborhood improvement projects, one of the things that's been great about it is to have the opportunity to work with Chris and work with the departments to try and think of big picture policy changes where we can try and restructure the way we do our work. And I think that we've done some good work over time, and the neglected building law that was passed by council last year, I think, is another example of a tool that focuses our efforts and our resources down onto the properties that really need the attention.
And from the work that you do with neighborhoods throughout the city, what's the impact on a neighborhood, homeowners, property owners surrounding problem properties like these?
Right, and it ratchets up obviously as the blighted condition increases. So when you have the properties that are in front of you now, and there's currently, well, no, there's not currently. I was going to say there are 28 properties in the registry, but 8, 10, I'll get the number wrong, but out of 28, some of them are definitely coming off. But let's say there's 24 properties in play right now. It doesn't sound like a lot of properties, but if you happen to be the homeowner that lives next door to one, or the renter that's trying, or the landlord that's trying to rent a property next door, or the realtor that's trying to list a property across the street, it's a big impact. You have these neglected properties. It's an impact on property values. It's an impact on quality of life. So it's definitely one of the things that we try and address in the Stronger, Safer Neighborhoods work that we do, especially when you've got vacant properties. Okay. It's just an opportunity for crime and disorder.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Connolly.
Chris Connolly, City Attorney's Office.
Okay. So you get to do the fun stuff of the court proceedings and things that might lead up to court proceedings. And I know from work that we've done before, prior to this being in place, that's challenging. Yes. Difficult to get people compliant and to move things forward. So how has your life improved over this last year as a result of this work?
Well, it's a new challenge, obviously, because it is a different process. It's a little bit different than the property cleanup cases that I know you're familiar with that we do for building and safety also. It's under a different ordinance. But it's in the same vein. We're trying to improve the fabric of the community by getting rid of some of these problem properties. And this is a different way to deal with a different problem. Because these houses are vacant and they have a separate set of problems than just a lot of stuff in the yard, it presented some different challenges. And so the effectiveness of this ordinance is starting to bear some fruit, and that's the important thing to us. We're encouraged by the results we're getting. Obviously, we don't have compliance from everyone yet, but we're starting to see some results, and we think this is going to start working itself out. As the word starts to spread a little more and more that we really mean business, that we really are going to do this, and that there is a very real cash cost to these property owners. We're hoping that they will look at it and decide, this isn't worth it. I'm gonna sell it, I'll demolish it, or maybe I'll go fix it up. Do something with it. That's the main word we're trying to get to everyone, is do something with the property.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? All right, thank you, guys. Anyone wishing to speak to this item, please come forward.
Jane Kinsey with Watchdogs. If you apply a lien, how do you get blood out of a turnip?
That is an interesting question. Now, having said that, we do get the lien on the property. If there is value to the property, we can foreclose on the lien and force a sale, and we may be able to get our money back, or some of our money back. There is not a guarantee that we're going to get all of our money back on any property. There may be some properties that will already have a bank lien on it, or mortgage, and we're going to take a lien that will be behind theirs, and so we may be stuck in some situations. But we still think that the benefit of moving forward with this and getting these properties cleaned up or demolished, as the case may be, is still much better than leaving it there and letting it adversely affect the fabric of the neighborhood. So.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris? All right, thanks. Anyone else wishing to speak? Please come forward. All right, next item, please. And can we do 25 and 26 together?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll call item 25 and 26, adopting the Lincoln Electric System annual budget for 2016 to become effective January 1st, 2016, and adopting the Lincoln Electric System rate schedules to become effective January 1st, 2016.
Good afternoon. Laura Kapuska, Vice President and Chief Financial Officer for Lincoln Electric System.
And Doug Banham, Chief Operating Officer for Lincoln Electric System.
So Kevin's out of town this afternoon, so I've got my comrade here with me. I also have copies to hand to each of you. It's slightly different than what was in the packet. It's a little more consolidated. If I can.
There you go.
Good afternoon. We're here today to talk about the 2016 Lincoln Electric System budget and rate schedules. There's two components to it. The first up is our budget authorization. Sorry, here a second. Total amount of our budget authorization, as you can see on the screen, is $380.6 million. 80 million of that is capital, and 300.6 million is operating authorization. The second piece of our discussion today is on our electric rate authorization, and we are not requesting a system-wide retail rate adjustment for 2016. We are requesting a couple changes to customer and energy charges, which I will cover, as well as the changes to a few other rate schedules. So as you probably already aware, and as I just said, we're not asking for a rate adjustment, and there were several tools that we use to help bring that rate increase down to 0 for 2016. I've highlighted just a couple of them on this slide. The first one is our Sustainable Energy Program. And so for the last couple of years, we've budgeted $4 million for that. In the 2016 budget, we've dropped that to $3 million, and that was part of the reason we were able to bring the rate increase down. The other thing that we used was $2 million out of the Burlington Northern lawsuit settlement. That was the second piece that then allowed us a 0% rate adjustment. If you look in the lower right-hand corner of the slide, it shows the total amount of the settlement we received from Burlington Northern, which was $10.8 million. In addition to using $2 million to offset the 2016 rate adjustment, we also are planning to use $6.3 million of it to fully fund our rate stabilization fund. And besides having that funded at its target level, it also allows us to remove the $2 million annual deposit into that fund, which has been in there for the last couple of years. And then that also leaves about $2.5 million left from that settlement that we're holding aside for potential rate mitigation of future rate adjustments. On the left-hand side at the bottom quarter of the slide, just covering the fact that this budget does meet our financial targets and that it does not identify the need for a financing in 2016. I should just give this to you. And also to point out at the bottom of that slide, something that we are very proud of is our electric rates. I mean, when everything is said and done, it comes down to how are your electric rates and how competitive are you. And we do a couple studies each year, and our national rate study, which we completed last year, where we look at 106 different cities, LES landed 11th lowest, so very proud of that. Okay, talking just a little bit about our operating authorization, you can see from the slide it's about a $25 million increase from 2015 to 2016. The majority of that increase is coming in power costs, but what you can't see from looking at the slide is the increase in revenues. So the wholesale revenues are up about $26.5 million, actually more than offsetting the increase in power costs. There is a slight increase in our debt service costs, and that was related to a financing that we did earlier this year, which allowed us to refund some bonds and receive about $7.4 million of net present value savings. And at that time, to take advantage of the efficiencies, we also issued bonds for liquidity that we would need to take us through 2016. So we did have a slight increase from that. And then finally, our O&M, which is our operating and maintenance, and our administrative and general costs are roughly flat. However, in the 2016 budget, that's where the $1 million reduction for SEP is at. And so without that reduction, operating costs would be up slightly. Those are things, insurance, payroll, maintenance, those type of ongoing costs are up slightly. And now to look at our capital authorization. If you look at that year over year, it's about a $9.4 million increase from 2015. And we've highlighted some of the larger projects in the box to the upper left. Those projects total about $45 million, over half of our budget, telling you that the rest of the projects that make up the rest of the budget are quite small projects. We have at any time hundreds of projects going on. But I'll talk about just a couple of those, and if you have any questions on any others, please let me know. The first one in the box is the Laramie River Station, and that's a plant that we have partial ownership of in Wyoming, and it's a 3-unit plant, and they are beginning the process of implementing selective catalytic reduction on each of those units. It's a project that will take from 2015 to 2019, and will put the plant in compliance with the regional haze rule. In the 2016 budget, LES's share of that project is about $7.8 million. So that's included in the $17 million. The second item on the list is the LES Operations Center. So that's, again, a multi-year project, which in the budget, it completes in 2018. And that is the Operations Center on 98th and Rokeby, which we started planning for in 2013 based on a study that looked at the growth of the city, looked at the risk of having all of our crews on just the north side of town, looked at the growth of the city, and looked at those things in combination, and resulted with a recommendation that we need going forward 2 operations centers to better serve our customers out of. Let's see, the second to the last one, the mobile meter reading project, that one might be somewhat visible. We're about halfway done with that, but that was replacing meters for all of our customers so that we can drive by and pick up the readings. It's an efficiency and a cost-saving project for us, and that will be done and all the meters changed out by June 30th of next year. And then finally on the list there, the wind generation interconnect. That's a project that has an offsetting revenue piece also to it. So it is to connect the Hallam Wind Farm to the LES transmission line. $3 million cost. We are also receiving $3 million from the developer. But that comes in outside the capital budget. That's why it's not reflected here. Okay, so the one item on the next slide. I'd be messing up, so I'm glad you're doing that. That we have been talking a lot about and talking with our customers a lot about is the restructuring of our electric rates. And this is really something that's not unique to LES. If you have your ear to the industry, you have utilities across the country that are talking about the need to restructure rates. And the graph really points out here why we need to do it. If you look on the left-hand side, the total cost, you can see about 74% of our costs are fixed in nature. So that's things like our debt service, maintaining our distribution system, our payroll for our employees, maintenance of our plants. A lot of those things are fixed, and they do not change they do not change no matter how much energy our customers use. We have to pay those costs. And then on the also on the cost side, but the variable piece is about 26% of our costs are really variable in nature, meaning they will change as our customers use more or less energy. Those are things like fuel, and some of our operating costs on our plants are actually variable also. But if you look at how we collect our revenues, you can see that only 6% of our revenues come in through a fixed format. That's our customer charge. We receive only about 6%. Most of our revenues come in a variable format, 94%, through that energy charge. And why this is a problem and why the industry is addressing it right now is as you go forward and as your energy projections, as your actual sales vary from what you projected, you run the risk of not collecting enough money to pay for the costs, those fixed costs that you have to pay for all the time. We're fortunate where we live that we are still seeing some positive energy growth, whereas you look at some of the coasts and you'll see that their energy growth is actually negative. And so their problem is much more of a burning platform where they've got to do something right now. What we're proposing is a more methodical, kind of a staged approach to addressing this. So if we look at the next slide, it really highlights what we're looking at doing, what we're proposing to do. So the main thing to keep in mind as we talk about this is revenue neutral to LES. So the customer charge goes up, the energy charge goes down. And bottom line to LES, there's no difference in revenue. The other important thing to keep in mind is this only impacts non-demand customers. So that's residential customers, heating service customers, and general service customers. Anybody that has a demand meter on their account is not impacted by this change. So you can see in the customer charge box, anything with a check mark next to it is a fixed cost, and it's being collected through a fixed component of the bill. So that's the way it should be. On the right-hand side, the energy charge, you can see there's a couple items that have a check mark next to them, meaning that they are variable and they're collected through a variable component of the bill. But the other things on that list are really fixed in nature, and yet we're collecting them through a variable format. So what our plan is beginning in 2016 is to take those items that you see circled, the distribution system costs and costs for our substation, and start to move them over into the customer charge. And as I mentioned, our plan is to do this in a slow manner, making it more adaptable for our customers in lieu of doing it all overnight. And I have a couple examples of how this can impact different customers. On the left-hand side is residential customers, and the right-hand side is general service customers. And all of these examples are using summer electric rates, energy rates. So on the left-hand side under residential, and it holds true for both residential and general service, your average user is going to see no change in their bill. They'll have a slightly higher customer charge, but they'll have savings in their energy component. So on average, there'll be no change to them. Where you do see a change is a low usage customer, both on residential and general service. And you can see here a 500 kilowatt per hour month customer, and that would be a fairly small residential home. It's about a 65-cent increase. And you can see also then on the general service side, you have about a little over $1 increase per month. On the high usage customers, at the bottom, it highlighted in blue, you can see they actually have a reduction in their monthly bill. So the increase in the customer charge is more than offset by the reduction in their energy charges. So just to summarize what we are requesting in the budget resolution, again, it's the operating authorization for $300.6 million and the capital authorization for $80 million. Also included in that budget resolution, and this was also similarly in last year's resolution, is approval to amortize some of the costs that we have related to outages or maintenance costs at some of our different generating plants. So the accounting rules will allow us to amortize that instead of charging it in 1 year. if you have approval from your governing board. And by doing that, it matches more the expense of the outage or the maintenance with the time frame, with a time frame that's more representative of the outage or of the cost of that. So it allows us to spread it out to the customers. And then item number 3 on the list is something that's in there every year, and it's also a requirement for us to be able to reimburse ourselves with tax-exempt debt. In the future, we have to also have that provision in there where you are authorizing us to be able to do that. And also in there is number 4, the authorization to acquire necessary right-of-ways is also an annually in there. And finally, in the rate schedule resolution, again, no system-wide rate adjustment is being requested. We are looking to eliminate a couple rate schedules, and I'll just touch on those briefly. The maximum bill provision, the first on the list, is really an outdated provision that has been, we've yet to find any other utility that has it, and it only applies to demand customers. And it limits their cents per kilowatt hour to, right now it's 25 cents per kilowatt hour. So anything in excess of that is subtracted or eliminated from their bill. And what happens when you do something like that is that you're then shifting those costs to somebody else. So we've been gradually working on reducing this maximum bill provision. It was $1 a couple years ago. We're now proposing to just eliminate it altogether. It affects about 50 customers, and it's about $33,000 a year. The summer conservation credit. This is one that was put in place in 1991 and was really intended to help low-income customers. And what the provision is, or the credit is if you use less than 10 kilowatt hours a day for the whole month in the summer, you receive a $1.64 credit. Well, what we found out when looking at who was actually receiving this credit was it wasn't necessarily all going to low income. We were seeing it go to vacant buildings and garages. And so as we thought, to try to get true to what we had intended to do, our plan is to eliminate that credit and move the portion of the money that we felt was really going to low income customers into our energy assistance program. And then finally, the off-peak seasonal rate. We had only one customer on it. And so what we've done is, what we're proposing to do is eliminate that rate and move that customer over to a very similar rate. It's just called off-peak daily. We've discussed it with them, and they're no problems with that. The other thing in the rate schedule is the adjustment to the customer and energy charges, and we went over those in detail. And then finally, minor service fee and other miscellaneous changes. Some wording cleanup. Every time you read our rate schedules, you find some definition that you've moved, and so just kind of clean up wording. And I think that was attached to your packet, so you can see the red line of all the changes we're proposing. So I would be open to any questions, and I'd just like to say that we're really proud of the work we did on this budget, and we feel like it reflects LES and its commitment to public power and low costs and reliable service. And at this time, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer any.
Questions? John?
Thank you. You always do a very nice job, and so brief in summarizing here. A couple quick questions. First of all, you did your rate comparison, and it's always interesting to see how Lincoln fares so well nationally. When you do the rate comparison, is that the energy cost portion, or that we pay, or does that include the customer service charge?
It's everything. It's included. It's the total cost for your bill. If you think about just taking your total bill, say it's $112 at customer charge and energy, and divided it by, to come up with a monthly average, but it's everything included.
Okay. And do you do that, is that on a residential basis, or do you include business categories, or how do you?
Mm-hmm. We do, and I actually think there was one in your packet, and if you want, I have a slide here.
Sure.
Okay, all right. I actually brought a couple extra ones, which I thought were kind of interesting. This is our regional rate comparison here. I'm not sure how it's going to show on here. So we look at 5 different rate classes, and the heading in blue describes the rate class it is, so residential, small commercial. And then the shaded area is how LES, or Lincoln, we're doing it by city, fares in 2016 is the far right column, 2015 is the left column. So that you can see that in every category, on the left-hand side, we are the lowest. And when you go over to commercial and industrial, we're not the lowest, but we are among the lowest. And, you know, sometimes that can happen. So LES operates on a cost of service. So we don't give incentives to different rate classes. We charge each rate class the cost to serve them. But that's not how every utility operates. So there are some that can provide incentives, and that could be some of the reasons that people are lower.
So when you come up with Lincoln or LES being the 11th lowest in the nation, do you do sort of an average there on a dollar amount, or how do you come up with that?
Actually, that's a different survey. This is our regional comparison.
Okay.
The national rate survey is the one I was mentioning where we're 11th lowest. And that's available on les.com, and I don't think I brought any of those slides.
But is that residential, is that business, or I would think each
That's
class
all
might be a
in.
little bit different?
It's probably has 15 or 20 different consumption levels, so it's all different types of customers.
Okay.
And you can actually see the results of where LES fares. In total, we're 11th, but then it also shows for each of those energy consumption levels how we compare.
Okay. Second question is, you talked about an additional $6.3 million going into the rate stabilization fund. And so with that $6.3 million, does that get us to the $28.5 million?
Correct.
Okay. Curious question, on page 4, you have the budget operating authorization, and in there you have the pilot, the payment in lieu of taxes. And I noticed from 2005 to 16, it actually went down, even though the budget went up. Just curious why.
I don't have the exact, there could be some rounding, and it could be very, very close when it's not rounded, but it's the same formula, 5% of sales within wholesale. So, I mean, our sales, oh, well, here, this would be it. If you look at our 2015 budget compared to our 2016 budget, and that's what these are, so it's not what we're actually experiencing this year, but it's what we thought we would experience in sales. Our budget for 2015 sales was higher than what is actually coming in at. And so what we'll actually end up paying in pilot will be less than that, because it's based off of actual sales, and this was a budget.
So the 2015 is a budget?
2015 budget, yeah.
Okay.
So if you would look at our actual 2015 energy sales, our 2016 budget is above that, but budget to budget, it's actually down.
Okay, and so you've tried to level a little bit in the 2016 budget?
Well, right, we
projections,
feel 2016 is a better reflection of where we'll be.
And then on page 6, this is where you're talking about this shifting some of the costs, the fixed costs, to the customer service charge, and you're showing that you've got 6%. Is this currently, or is that going to be in this next year with your modifications?
This is based on 2015. So we created this chart before we had the 2016 budget done.
Got that.
Yeah.
With the changes in 2016, how much will that 6% increase?
Is that the same question you asked me before? Hang on, I have it.
I know you do. These are just softballs to you.
I know
And then what I was going to do
Here we
then is
go.
just, how many years do you want to make this gradual shift? And at the end, where do you see the percentage ratios?
Okay, so in 2016, that 6% of total revenue coming in on a fixed basis would be 8%. So it's just a slight increase, and that means the revenue that's coming in on variable would drop from 94 to 92%, so it'd be slightly. So how many years? That's a good question. We don't specifically have a number of years that we're looking at. If we did 20% a year, it'd be 5 years. But you've got underlying costs that are changing at the same time. So we're being conscious to our customers as well as those costs. So what our plan is to move methodically each year to make incremental movement. But the other part of this is an education for us in the industry, is that is it the right answer to have all these fixed costs in the customer charge? Or is there a different way to do that? Should you have a separate type of charge, and maybe it only applies to, say, larger residential customers and not the smaller ones? So our plan is to take it slow so that as we in the industry learn more about the best way to assess this charge, that we haven't gone too far, that we can kind of step into it.
And I appreciate that. Just at this stage, looking ahead over several years doing this, do you have an unwritten target? Say maybe you want to go to 15% or 20%, or
well, if
something you may be thinking about long term?
If you looked at, so what we're proposing is our customer charge would go to $13.40. if you said, what would that be today if you took all of those distribution and substation costs that we had circled and put them in there tomorrow, it'd be about $23, I think, and 40 cents. What we know is that those costs are going to change over time. So that would roughly move all those costs into that portion.
So that's almost double what it is today. You're doing a little, what, around $2, I think, this
Yeah,
first year. I just wanted to get an idea, and I appreciate the fact you'll reevaluate it. Thank you.
Other questions? Larry?
Thank you so much. We were fortunate to have a careful briefing from you a few weeks ago to help us digest so much of this information, and your board has done a wonderful job of making that process easier for us. One of the questions that came up in my briefing had to do with the Sustainable Energy Program, and I think you were helpful in explaining that who benefits from that program specifically. And can you speak to the percentage of commercial versus residential who take advantage of that?
Actually, and I think I have a slide on that too. I do. If you can make that fit. So the reduction in the Sustainable Energy Program, we don't want it to be viewed as not support for the program, because we wholeheartedly, and our board wholeheartedly supports this program. But as we started looking ahead, and we were making kind of a little bit of crossroads with the SCP program, in that we were discontinuing a portion, a lighting incentive program, which in the past had made up about 20% of our incentive distribution. So that was a large percentage of it. And then at the same time, we were also doing a study that's looking at all of the programs and all the incentives that are paid out under that program to make sure that the incentives that we're paying are getting the value that we are expecting out of it. So in 2016, it made sense to take a year, step back, reduce it by $1 million, helped us with the rate increase, while we kind of reassess things in 2016. So what this slide shows you is the percent that, and I can't read it without getting a little closer.
You can enlarge it.
Let's see, so the commercial lighting you see at the bottom, that's about half of what the is paid out in the through the SCP program. The square here. The commercial lighting, that was the one I was just speaking about. That's about 18%. That's the piece that would be not being replaced next year. Can you see anything?
Which ones do you want? You want to go around this?
Sure.
The high efficiency heat pumps is 13%.
So the heat pumps, and so that's mainly going to residential customers.
And then commercial industrial energy efficiency is 15%.
So there'd be a commercial type. In total, we have about 18% of the SCP that goes to residential customers. The most of it is going to commercial and industrial customers.
And the demand for this program has been significant.
Significant.
Correct? Can you speak to sort of when you've had to stop applications in the past few years?
You might have to help my memory in this. This year, we fully allocated all the monies in September, or was it before? End of September, it was fully allocated. That was 2015. In 2014, it took us till the end of the year. Is that right? And then 2013, I think it was June, we were out of money. So it's kind of, it hasn't been consistent each year, but there has been significant demand for the program.
And as I recall, and from your previous briefing, the idea was that it was a temporary reduction while you went through this study, so that you can take that information and put it to the most effective use of the program.
Right. We were somewhat concerned that we wouldn't be able to allocate all of the money in 2016 because of those changes. So our intention will be to discuss it again with the board next year, and I mean, they have many times wanted to take it above $4 million, and it's been kind of a discussion and a balancing of what is logical, what is prudent, what can we do, versus, you want to make sure you're not just giving away money. So, yeah, I know we will have that conversation again next year.
And that will expand, that study is going to expand upon this. Can you talk about this chart a little bit?
I happen to have that
Thank
one.
you.
Okay, so I can pull it out of here so I can actually see it while I'm talking. Okay, so what we do on this slide here, which is about to be brought forward, is a cumulative impact. Wow, that's hard to read up there. A cumulative impact of our Sustainable Energy Program, which will continue to add to, in 2015, 15, 16, and beyond. So right now, it's only taking it through a portion of 2015. But some of the things that we're keeping track of is our peak reduction. So on line 2, you can see through since 2009 till mid-2015, we've had about 30 megawatts of peak demand. And that's been kind of one of the key components of this program, because anytime you can reduce peak demand, you're able to offset the need for that next generating plant, which is a very expensive endeavor when you need to do that. So we keep our eye on that. The other thing that is a somewhat of a side benefit of the SEP program is on line 3. So you can see we've had 17,000 kilowatt hours a year of energy savings also for that program. And then as you continue to go down through this through the slide, it keeps track of benefits to the actual participants. Then there's a category that's talking about all of the ratepayers, the benefits to them. And part of that annual ratepayers benefit is because we're able to push off the next generating plant, we calculate how much in annual debt service payments are not having to be made because we didn't have to build that next plant. And then we, in the green section, talking about the different environmental benefits, whether it's CO2 reductions, and then how many equivalent homes or cars removed from the road. And then finally, the community economic benefits, and you can see that totals about $83.7 million. So significant impact. That's the total cost of the incentive program. So we may have given you a portion to incent you to do the program, but this includes the entire cost of the project. So you can see there's been a lot of impact on the community from this program. So something we do take very serious, and that's also part of the reason our seriousness in saying that we needed to reduce it by $1 million for 2016.
Well, thank you for taking the time to invest, resources in quantifying the benefits. It's important to show the bottom line as it relates to your sustainability programs, and it's nice to see the good work that's been achieved so far by this program. Thank you.
Yeah. Carl.
Thank you. Okay, the Operations Center piece of the budget. $14.8 million, and I remember a figure in that box previous years. So where, with this 14.8, where does that put you with that amount, that category?
Gotta let Doug answer something.
Okay.
That's actually a cash flow number for 2016.
All right. So how much have we spent previously for that effort then?
Primarily, it's been purchase of the land.
Right.
Just $3 million.
Okay.
And then there's some initial design work going on now, but it's pretty minimal at this point.
Okay. Do you have a projected cost at this point of what the facility will be?
The number that came from the feasibility study was $72 million. $50 million of that is actual construction costs. It's going to be done as a construction manager at risk project, so as we move forward, we'll get a better idea what the cost will be. But that's the estimate at this point.
And when is construction projected?
Late 2018, early 2019.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to these items, please come forward.
You've got the LES people too. I have a question. I'm Pat Schurz. I may have not caught this, but I've noticed you guys have changed the lookout on the LES bill. It used to be able to be where I could read it without having my Sarah to read it. Now the way it's laid out, the numbers are too small for me to read, and I'm trying to understand why the change of the way the LES bottom portion that was torn off was made so that the numbers were not as big.
Doug, do you want to address that?
I think the purpose of redesigning the bill was to get more information on the bill. We probably inadvertently made the text a little small on the bottom. We can take a look at that.
Yeah. Do you want to get her?
I'm not mad. I just was trying to understand. Okay? All right? Thank you. you.
Take some information from her and maybe we can work something out. Thank you.
Well, now that I've got the Sarah, I can read it. It'll read it. But I was able to read it without that before I got it. I'm just glad I got it now.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, members of the council. Kobe Mack appearing on behalf of the Lincoln Independent Business Association, LIBA. We've been before you many years in the past, asking for rate adjustments, asking for budget adjustments. This year, actually a second year in a row, we're quite pleased to be here in support of the budget that's being proposed by Lincoln Electric. The LES board and their effort in holding the electric rates steady again this year we think demonstrates a commitment to the best interests of Lincoln residents as well as the business owners whose budgets directly are impacted by utility rates every month. Working to keep the electric rate steady and consistent goes a long way toward helping those businesses budget and keep that budget in check, especially during a year when many Lincolnites saw their annual property tax burden rise as a result of the increased real estate valuations that some folks had. LIBA does, however, recognize that much of the reason that a rate increase may not be occurring this year is the result of what you might call limited funds. Even so, we're glad to see that LES is working to keep those rates under control, and we appreciate really kind of a creative approach in tailoring the budget to better serve the needs of energy users. The board's willingness to approach the Sustainable Energy Program that you've just been talking about, the SEP, with restraint this year, we think is important. We understand the intent of future years is to restore the funding of the SEP program to its $4 million level. Nevertheless, reducing our commitment this year during an evaluation of the program itself we think makes sense, as LES works with an independent consultant to determine the goals of the SEP and the best way to achieve those goals. It is wise to pull back on the investment made by the ratepayers until a clear plan is presented for how they want to move forward. Similarly, using a portion of the BNSF, the Burlington Northern lawsuit settlement funds, at this time to offset costs while placing excess funds into a reserve account to address future potential rate increases, we also think is a sensible use of those funds. Using the settlement proceeds to reduce the cost for energy users really is a great way to ensure that the proceeds directly benefit the Lincoln Electric customers. LIBA wants to thank the LES board and the staff for their dedication to providing affordable and reliable electricity. It is very, very reliable in this community. And we ask the council to approve the proposed budget moving up forward for the fiscal year. Thank you.
Questions for Kobe?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? And if you're going to speak, please come down and we'll know that you want to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the City Council. My name is Andy Pollock. I'm with the Rembold Ludke Law Firm. I'm here today appearing on behalf of the Lincoln Employers Coalition, a coalition of about 25 large users of electricity, mostly commercial and industrial users. And like Mr. Mack, we are here to support the LES budget proposal and the rate proposal, resolutions 25 and 26 in front of you. I just make a few specific comments on the budget and rate proposal. And I believe they'll be consistent with comments I've made in the past before the City Council and also before the LES Board. First of all, the proposal to move some of the fixed costs for distribution, transmission to the customer charge we think is wise. Along the same lines, we strongly support the allocation, the way that they've allocated those customer charges. Historically, at least in recent history, LES has been diligent about moving the cost of service to the user that's basically creating that cost. And they've done it on on more of a class basis, customer class basis. That hasn't always inured to the benefit of the members of the LEC. Sometimes they've paid more, or that they've seen their costs go up in recent years. But we haven't objected to that trend because we strongly support what LES is doing in terms of moving the cost of service to the people causing that cost. And they've done it on a class basis before. Now we see them with the proposal in front of you moving to a more micro granular level, kind of within some of the classes, and we think that's prudent and a fair and just way to allocate their costs. We support the adjustment in the SCP, not because it's a reduction, but because it's a prudent use of resources. The Employers Coalition has been a supporter of the Sustainable Energy Program in the past, and we support what they're doing this year because of the phasing out of the lighting program and the stepping back and studying the program as a whole. Finally, we support the use of the Burlington Northern Santa Fe settlement proceeds. We support the allocation of $6.3 million of that to the Rate Stabilization Fund. As you'll recall, we've been somewhat critical of LES's proposals in the past to allocate significant amounts to that Rate Stabilization Fund, but they truly have put their money where their mouth is. In terms of the Burlington Northern settlement proceeds, it's good to see them reach that target. We understand that target might change, but we also appreciate the openness that LES has shown in discussing why they set the target where it is and why they think reaching that target is necessary. Finally, also with the Burlington Northern Santa Fe settlement, we support the allocation of $2.5 million of that, essentially to hedge against the possibility of future rate increases. With that, I'd simply like to compliment LES and their management and their board in the way that they've come up with the budget this year, the openness that they've shared it with the public, and the willingness of LES to answer questions that we've had. With that, I'd be glad to try to answer questions.
Questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, Mike Dickey. I own two businesses in Lincoln. I was coming down here to talk about LES for their moving their operations center. I hope you dig into that a little bit further than what they're telling, everything that they're telling you. They finally come out that they start out their first budget at $25 million. They're up to 72 now. Just found out tonight. You got to look beyond what they do. I own two businesses. I have trucks that need replaced, tons of equipment. I don't have an open pocket. I can't go out there and buy that. If I need something, I can't just go out there and say, hey, you know what? I want to buy something new. Why do they need a new facility? I actually went down there and talked to them. They told me that while they did a study on it. They showed me the study that they actually have on there. One of the very first lines says, hey, the study that's super close to utilities scored a 9 out of 20. The only thing they can get out there at 98th and Rokeby is actually electricity. They have to get their own water from rural. They have to get a septic. They can't get gas. They scored a 9. How can you get a 9? I don't have no idea. Some questions that you need to ask them, not me. Second off, that $72 million, does that also include your fire department? Every employee that works out there, they're not even in the city limits. They're actually on rural. That's going to come from Bennett, which is volunteer fire department. The nearest fire department in Lincoln is actually at 48th and Highway 2, which is approximately 13 minutes away. If you had a heart attack, or an employee had a heart attack, what's going to happen? Volunteer fire department's excellent. They're very good. But it's going to take them longer to get there because obviously they're going to have to be called in. These are questions that you need to ask yourself. It's not in the city limits. It's way outside. Also, do they need a new place? Another thing they said is, well, we need to have something that's out of the flood zone. They said, well, we shut our floodgates last year. We didn't get water in. How high was the water? Have you ever seen in the last 100 years? Has it been higher than it was last year? They still didn't get water in. Do they need it? I don't know. It's $72 million. What else could you do with $72 million? Talk to their employees. I actually went out and talked to some of the employees. They're not too happy. Maybe they ought to go talk to their own employees. Okay? I did. I took the time to do it. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you actually need to look at beyond just that part. Okay, $72 million. What are you going to do? If you owned a business and you wanted to do something with that money, Again, I'm a small business owner. I need new equipment. My employees always need new equipment. I can't get it. I don't have an open pocketbook. Yes, our rates are low. They are low. Could they be lower? Absolutely. Do we need a new facility? No, absolutely not. Maybe instead of buying a new facility, maybe they should buy more trucks for their employees. Maybe buy a few new employees so they're not working 16-hour days. That's stuff that you need to ask yourself instead of building a new facility. They're going to move all the corporate office down from downtown down to there. Why are they doing that? Is it because someone wants the building? You need to ask yourself that too. Who's heading that up? Where did they come from? Who is looking at that building? Okay? As soon as that building goes up, and as soon as someone come in and express interest on the building downtown, all of a sudden the person from the mayor's office all of a sudden is now working for LES. You need to look into that. Ask yourself all those questions. At the end of the day, would you, if you owned a business, would you be willing to spend that kind of money? I'll tell you what, if it was not owned by a city and it was owned publicly, would a public person go out and spend $72 million if they didn't need to? Of course not. They would take a vacation, would they not? Absolutely. But they can't give themselves bonuses, so instead of a bonus, they would rather spend the money and buy themselves a new office. So that's all I have to say.
Questions? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Jane Kinsey with Watchdogs of Lincoln Government. We'll second this gentleman's, I would say, criticism about this. And what really boils down to is we don't raise the rates, then we can justify building this huge new complex out south. I don't know if you know it or not, but there's a blog going around, and citizens are responding to it because they are not in favor of this either. Actually, the rates are not the same because of the quarter-cent sales tax that you approved to be added to the city sales tax. So that's a hidden cost there. Also, several years ago, the city gave LES the responsibility for paying for streetlights. So again, that could be shoved back to the city that has a lot of extra money, supposedly, to put aside for this, that, and the other. The haven't told us what the raises that these highly paid administrators have gotten. I don't know if they were included in the city raising of salaries or not, but most of these high salaried people make 2 or 3 times as much as the average $50,000 salary that was pointed out by Lincoln Vital Signs, and also I think in the census. No wonder the Salvation Army and the Center for People in Need are bombarded for services. Sustainability means nothing when you are trying to keep the wolf from the door. I'm glad to hear that they are going to provide for the low income, but I wonder, with the great demand in Lincoln for assistance, if that's going to cover it. The move to, well, I won't go over that. I said I seconded this gentleman's issues. The LES has told you they are 11th in the nation. I think that's incomplete. Are we talking about public utilities 11th? Are we talking about private utilities and public 11th? We need to know more about that in order to accept that as the gospel truth. I had a discussion with John Fortick of LES a few days ago about smart meters. There is a group in Lincoln who have voluntarily allowed their meters to be regulated during peak hours. And I noticed that that was mentioned as something that they are monitoring. Now, he told me he wouldn't tell me that this would never be implemented. But he said it's 10 years, perhaps 10 years down the road. I don't know if you know about this, but it has caused a lot of problems over the country, and the taxpayers have stood up against it. You need to be aware of it. You need to be wise about it. And keep on top of it, because you're the ones who are in charge of LES and how their budgets are and what they do.
All right, questions for Jane? Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to this item? All right, Laura, would you like to come back up? Or are you coming up, sir? Okay.
So there was a lot of questions asked, and we're open to discuss or respond to any of them that you would like us to. There's
I've got one.
Carl.
Yes. The question just most recently raised about smart meters. There are new meters that you're putting in, but they're not so smart, I don't think. So can you tell us about these meters?
Right. A smart meter has two-way communication, so you can communicate it to it, and it can send information back to you. That is not the type of meters that we're putting in. We put in our MMR project. It is just one-way communication meters, so we can drive by and read the meters, but we cannot send any information back to the home, and that's what a smart meter. That's what's missing from a smart meter. And in the program that was referred to, that's our AC load control program. So there's a little bit of a difference between the MMR program and the AC load control, which is the program in which customers have to sign up for, and we have just only done a trial where it allows us to, during peak periods of the summer, to regulate their air conditioner for a short period of time.
Okay. And the MMR, that program, you're replacing most all the meters?
Basically, all the meters except for some of our very largest customers that
Okay.
we have to read manually.
And how often would you replace meters system-wide?
Well, let's see.
We've never done a system-wide replacement before. I don't know what the life of these would be, but we would eventually start replacing them. But
okay.
The strategy was we could go with an AMI full smart meter replacement, or we could pause again and say, let's put the smart or the MMR meters in, do mobile meter reading like the water company does and the gas company, and see where the AMI meter technology goes forward. One of the biggest benefits of AMI is controlling load control through air conditioner control. So that's the purpose of this second demand-side management program. So it's kind of a conservative approach to take the meat out of the AMI projects and do it our way, I guess.
Thank you.
Other questions? Jane?
Can you talk a little bit about the site selection process that you went through for the Rokeby proposed location of the service center?
Sure. I'm going to let Doug handle that because he did a little bit of, I thought was interesting, the information about when we built the service center on 27th Street that kind of puts it in perspective and it ties it in.
I think I know what you're referring to. It started out with, we've been in our existing facility. By the time the new facility is constructed, we will have been there for 40 years. The system has, from an energy standpoint, is more than doubled. From an electrical load perspective, it's doubled. We're landlocked now. We can't park all of our trucks on our own property. We can't park our largest truck in our facility. There's just a lot of restrictions now because the system and our equipment has grown. So what we did is we went through a request for qualifications for consultants and then went out for an RFP and selected a local consulting company to go through a full vetting of local property that might be available. We met with the city to find out where they would prefer the location to be, and it's adjacent to where the city boundaries are. It is a 40-year facility. We looked at future service from water and sewer. Of course, we have electric service out there, close to the growth area of the city. One of the most important things we looked at is in a 15-minute emergency situation, we want to be able to reach the most critical areas of the city from both locations. If you've seen any of the photographs of Joplin and some of the other utilities, if we would take a natural disaster hit like they had done, we wouldn't be able to get our own lights on, let alone the city. So there was risk involved, there was service to our customers, and there's this growth of the city to the southeast that we needed to cover. So it is needed. It is a 40-year facility, so we have to build for where the city's going and what we will need. But there was 11 different categories that we rated as we went down through this. And clearly the location that we selected was the winner of that evaluation process.
So is the gentleman correct in the estimation of a $72 million price tag for the construction of the new facility?
That is the estimate at this point. We won't know till it's designed, and we won't know then till we start bidding it, but the best estimate we have at this point is 72.
And the goal is to relocate the downtown office as well as the one on North 27th to this new location?
No.
No.
We would maintain both the North 27th and this location, so you've got access to customers from both locations. The downtown building, there'd still be a presence for bill paying downtown. It's the other office employees downtown that would be relocated to one of those two facilities.
Thank you.
One of the things we're finding as we try to locate fire stations in the urban environment are some of the challenges associated with trying to set up a new operation within the city limits. Can you speak a little bit to the advantages of this location, which is adjacent to the city limits, yet outside them? Can you talk about the cost of land, for example, and how that factored into the decision?
Right. So I'll just make a couple comments, and Doug's got much more depth on this. But it's not surprising is when you go to buy land, if we wait until the growth is all out there and out, even further out southeast, the price of that land would escalate even more than what we had to pay for it. And so it's just in being as prudent and practical to look ahead to where the city's growing and really buy the land before the city gets there, before it would then cost our customers a whole lot more than what we're able to secure it for. And if you want to add anything else?
Obviously there's a area that you wouldn't want to try to purchase 80 acres within the city. You have to continually move out, and then there's a bit of a sweet spot right on the perimeter where the development, you can purchase land for a reasonable price. If you go out another couple of miles where you'll be years and years before there's any city services, then the price would be lower, but then you're further away from the service area. So part of the process of this evaluation was to find from the center of the city to far out where the best pricing was for the land. And I think we did pretty well on that comparatively to the other properties in the area.
And I think the other thing that I thought was interesting is if you look back to 40 years ago when we built the service center out on 27th Street, there was nothing there. It was cornfields, and so we bought the land at that time. It's 40 years. You know how the area has grown up, and you would expect the same thing to happen, kind of where we're locating now.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on to the next item here.
Okay, we have public hearing ordinance's second reading, item 27, ordinance authorizing the execution of a First Amendment to lease agreement and a tax compliance agreement in connection with an adjustment to the interest rate provisions of the city's industrial development promissory revenue note, Nebraska School Activities Association Project Series 2015.
Good evening, Mike Rogers, bond counsel with Gilmore and Bell for the city. In front of you is an ordinance approving an amendment to a lease agreement that was entered into in 2010 among the city, U.S. Bank, and the Nebraska
Activities Association, Nebraska State Activities Association, the School Activities Association, excuse me. The financing was originally done as a conduit financing, where the city serves as the issuer, and the 501c3 nonprofit is the beneficiary of the financing. That is a very common financing structure, and it's done because it's necessary for a governmental issuer to be involved in order for a 501c3 entity to have tax-exempt interest on its borrowing. Under the statutes that this financing was done under, the city has no pecuniary liability for repayment of any of the obligations. All of the repayment obligations are with NSAA. This amendment is simply to adjust the interest rate provisions for the borrowing to reduce the existing interest rate and then push out the reset date for the interest rate reset under the financing documents. So it's really a very limited action item for financing that's been in place since 2010. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mike? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, I think that's the end of our public hearing. We'll move to the voting session.
Yes. Public hearing resolutions were items 24 through 26. Item 24, assessing liens for cost of registration fees and penalties for neglected buildings on the properties generally located at 226 South 29th Street, 2125 South 14th Street, 2217 South 67th Street, 1609 South 27th Street, 1344 D Street, 615 West Joel Street, and 3015 N Street, and assessing a lien for the cost of demolition on the property generally located at 441 D Street, introduced by Gaylord Baird.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Roy. Discussion. Go ahead. Did you raise your hand?
I didn't, but I will.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean,
sorry.
we hear from constituents all the time, and one of the things we hear about are problem properties, and they can be what seem to be intractable problems, and it's nice to have this council have been a part of gaining some momentum in addressing these formerly intractable problems. We hope that constituents who have the proximity to some of these locations will see real improvement, and happy to support this item.
All right, any other discussion? Okay, call the roll.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Fellers?
Yes.
Gaylord Baird?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Items 25 and 26 actually have an action date of 12/7/15. Public hearing ordinance, excuse me. Actually, that will conclude our public hearing portion. Ordinances, third reading and related resolutions. Item 28, annexation 15009, amending the Lincoln corporate limits map by annexing approximately 4.02 acres of property generally located at North 56th Street and Alvo Road, introduced by Carl Eskridge.
So moved. Second.
Seconded by Roy. Discussion. Larry.
Well, I'm planning to support this annexation. It's important for the growth of our community, and it's bringing about, I think, 25 lots for future housing. But I also think this is an opportunity to bring some awareness to something we heard about tonight from a constituent, which is emergency response times. Today, the travel time to this location from the nearest fire and rescue station is at Station 5 at Tucson and Benton, and that travel time is 7 minutes and 45 seconds. It's a pretty significant time, and it's certainly far past the 4-minute standard that we want our emergency responders to adhere to if possible. This response time is not going to change with the implementation of our station optimization plan. While that plan is bringing in a significant percentage of homes that are over that 4-minute response time, this area is not one of the areas, and these homes won't be among those homes. So I just think it's important to bring awareness to this for people as they're making decisions about where to live so that they have better, more complete information as they make their choices.
Okay, any other comments? All right, call the roll, please.
Lamb.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 29, change of zone 15026, application of Roger H. Schweitzel Revocable Trust for a change of zone from AG Agricultural District to R3 Residential District on property generally located at North 56th Street and Alva Road, introduced by Carl Eskridge.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Roy. Discussion. All right, call the roll.
Lamb.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, I'd like to make a motion on item 30, legislation to put that, to delay that until December 7th, and also to reopen public hearing, as I'm going to introduce a little bit different or longer message, and I think it's important that the public have the opportunity to comment.
Second.
So we have public hearing and vote.
Okay, seconded by Roy. Discussion. All right, call the roll on the motion to delay till December 7th.
Lamb.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Resolutions first readings are items 31 through 38. Ordinance first readings is items 39 and 40. We have no items on the pending list. Anyone wishing to address the council on a matter not on this agenda and not plan to appear on a future agenda may do so at this time. Tonight is an open mic session.
Hi, Mike Morosen, taxpayer, property owner. Wanted to discuss with you, of course, you know the ongoing battle that I'm having with the property and that. So we went before Judge Ott, and Judge Ott said, well, why don't you and Mr. Conley step outside and hash this out. So we stepped outside and we hashed it out, come to an understanding. And so Mr. Conley was going to write up what we had discussed, and I would receive a copy to take a look at and sign off on or sit down and talk about it. Well, while I was waiting to receive a copy, which I never received, all of a sudden the next item I get from the court is an order from the court stating, you know, we're going to come out and do a number of things. And I finally get a copy of that, and I take a look, and there's been some changes in it that were never on the board, never discussed. So Mr. Conley presented these to the court without my knowledge of some of this information. So the city came out and took my property, took my tools, took my equipment, and under the First Amendment, don't I have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? So I cannot earn a living. I'm denied the right to earn enough to pay my bills and feed myself, clothe myself, buy the medication. And it was all predicated on a lie that Mr. Conley basically presented the court with on some information. And so I confronted Mr. Conley when he was out there, and he said to me, yes, Mike, I added some provisions in there that we never discussed. So those of you who know that a lawyer, you can't do that. So I wrote a letter to the court, and I get back a letter saying, well, you can't have an ex parte communication. Well, usually when I deliver a letter to the court, I walk right over to the city attorney's office and I deliver a copy of that. Well, I did that. A look at the security tapes, you know, which are kept, would see that I deliver that because I always just a few minutes afterwards. So I think the mayor, and I think you need to take a look at it, because when you came out to my place and took everything that I had, they even took my weather station. They took one of my lawnmowers, said you can't have a lawnmower, took my tiller, took my garden tools, even took some of my Christmas lights down, took took my drafting table off the front porch that I've had since high school. You can't have a table, I guess, now on the front porch. You know, they came around, they even took my washing machine, perfectly good washing machine, off my back porch that I used to do washing of curtains and stuff. So they took a number of items predicated on a lie that Mr. Conley had shown the court. So I'm going to go down to the Bar Association and file, you know, a complaint because this was done. And those of you know, you can't change things, what you present to the court, without showing the other side. So I did not receive that. So I just wanted to make you aware of, you know, of what happened. And it's sad that it happened. And deny me the right to earn a living, I think we better take a look at it, that I have inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And if I don't have those rights, then please state to me that I don't. And I say that to the mayor. So it's very sad what happened and what was done. Well over $200,000 worth of my equipment and my personal tools were taken. So now I can't operate and make any money to feed and clothe myself. Now that's sad that the city would do that. But I wanted to make you aware that that happened and, you know, what's going on. So thank you very much. Any questions?
I have just one comment. It's the Fifth Amendment, not the First.
Yeah. Well, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. But yeah, you know, but I mean that thing, I should have the right to earn a living. Thank you very much.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Is there any grocery store where you can buy Sun-Maid raisins?
I may be the guy you've been looking for since 3 o'clock.
Thanks for waiting patiently.
Councilperson Raybold, you look comfortable in that seat. Chair Fellers, members of the council, Gary Aldridge, ALDRIDGE, 7112 South 45, 68516. I'm one of the owners. I think I'm a person of reasonable intelligence. I'll come back to that. I have for years, a log of my phone calls. I'll come back to that. At plus or minus 1,800 hours local time on 5 November 2015, I received a telephone call on my home phone, 402-421-3564. From caller ID, I captured the number 417-678-3449 and point of origin, Wilkin Glen. I don't know anyone in a Wilkin Glen. I don't want to know anyone in a Wilkin Glen. Area 417 is in Missouri. Wilkin Glen, Missouri does not exist. At 1838 local time, at 1847 local time, at 1903 local time, a phone call came to my residence from 417-678-3449, Wilkin Glen. I answered some. My machine answered some. The response from phone number 417-678-3449 was the same. Silence. Nothing. A person of reasonable intelligence would say this activity was deliberate, was calculated, was not innocent. For a person of reasonable intelligence, the real purpose was to harass, intimidate, threaten, bully, or frighten. The Telephone Consumer Protection Act, aka 47 U.S.C. 227, is designed to discourage such activity. My home phone is enrolled in, quote, do not call. Perhaps removing my phone would result in fewer nuisance calls. But back to my story. That evening, I made 3 phone calls after this intrusion. I keep a log of my phone calls. 1 of 3, LPD, non-emergency, 402-441-7204. When LPD non-emergency desk answered, I asked who I was speaking to. Answer, this is LPD. Okay, do you have a name or number? I was given a number, which I captured. I told my story and said I wanted to file a report or complaint. LPD suggested I call my telephone provider to block the call. A meeting with an officer was necessary to execute a report or complaint. Fair enough. However, I was soon to be out the door to attend a Grand Kitty sporting event. I would again call to arrange this meeting. 2 of 3. That evening, I did call my phone service provider to block this number. 3 of 3. Again, I contacted LPD non-emergency. When the LPD desk answered, I asked who I was talking to. Answer, this is LPD. I asked, do you have a name or number? The person provided a name which I captured. I repeated my story. I asked, as I had been previously told, to meet with an officer to execute a complaint or report. Response from LPD this time, no can do. No report or complaint can be executed by LPD because silence is not a violation of law. Ain't democracy beautiful? 2 issues. Personnel who work for LPD, i.e. those who answer phone calls, is not a matter of national security. Citizens, taxpayers, owners have a reasonable expectation of transparency. Second, management is responsible for getting LPD personnel on the same sheet of music. It is some more than frustrating when LPD or any tax-supported agency tells citizens, taxpayers, owners, yes, we can, and then, no, we cannot. That is what I heard.
1 minute.
Thank you. Someone pounds on a front door and runs away 4 times. Someone calls a home phone and runs away 4 times. Both seem like harass, intimidate, threaten, bully, and or frighten.
All right, anyone else wishing to speak this evening?
Mr. Chair, seeing nobody coming forward, I would move for adjournment.
Second.
All right, call the roll.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes,
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
we are adjourned.